What's up, creeps? It's Jason. Of course, this is Riley, Rigor Mortis, or Rigor Mortis Mask, and today we're going subterranean. That's right. We got the Don Post 98 reissue, calendar reissue right here, Mole Man, which is I'm super stoked about. Or if you want to go to the 1966 calendar, it's a Mr. November right here, man. Which we'll give you a good shot of this earlier. And this is an original.
Calendar mask.
Ooh, original calendar mask with the original calendar. So I'm very stoked. So, yes, the a reissue, which Riley will talk about in a second here, but let's talk about The Mole People.
Yeah.
Which is a film probably no one's seen. All right.
It's an underground one.
It is, and it's an old 1956 movie. It's more of a sci-fi movie than anything, right? About this race of these weird albinos that live underground. And they enslave these mole people to do all their dirty work, right? And get them like mushrooms and shit. It's really ridiculous.
That's their rewards, and they're getting whipped the whole time. It's wild.
It's very wild, man. And where a lot of people haven't seen this movie, but like when Mr. Science Theater, Svengoolie, they've kind of repopped these, not repopped it, but they've brought them back to light and everything like that, so people like us can actually watch it. I'm old, but I ain't that old, man.
They dug them up.
Yeah. So now people are like, wait, you said Universal Monsters. This is not a Universal Monster. It's not listed as the classic, what do I say, the Mount Rushmore of Universal Monsters. Yeah. But this does fall into the Universal Monster films, which they had over 160 films, by the way. So, but the Mole People is just one of many out there. And Don Post back in the 60s actually made a cool mask of this, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, to get one of those masks, good luck. They're probably long gone. I don't know are they out there, but they're probably
the 60s ones are pretty rotted up. You can find 70s copies if they're foam filled, but there are very few copies from the 60s. They're all crumbled up and rotten. So
they're gone. So I just put them out there. It's not impossible to get, but pretty much impossible. So what they did was they did a reissue, right? Yeah. So tell me about this, man.
So I'm gonna try and make this story as not boring as possible. In the 1960s, Don Post Sr. and Vern Langdon teamed up to do basically their own interpretation of the Universal Monsters, and they called them Hollywood Horrors. It was like a Frankenstein, a Dracula, and a few others, and they did it under that name because Hollywood Horrors wasn't interfering with the Universal licensing.
Right.
Well, Universal saw them, and the masks were super popular, and they were like, why don't you just make a lineup? And then they called them the Universal Horrors, which were through Universal. And then a publisher came to the studio and was looking at these 11 by 14 photographs of the masks that Vern Langdon and Don Post took. And he told him, you might as well make a calendar with all these beautiful pictures. And the guy's like, well, I'm a publisher, I can do that. So they went ahead and made 12 creatures into a calendar of all these beautiful masks to sell as Don Post. And that's why there's some strange ones like this, like the Mole Man, and there's even a gorilla that was never like sold or anything except for a full costume, never just a mask.
Pretty cool.
And all the kids in the 60s wanted these masks, but they were like $40 in the 60s. That's a lot of money.
That's over $100 today, definitely. And
so these kids would write Don Post Jr., because Don Post Sr., of course, died by the time, 30 plus years later, and they'd keep writing him and asking him, I mowed lawns, I washed cars, I tried to do everything to get your Don Post calendar masks, but $30-$40, I couldn't do that back in the day. So they wanted them, but by the time they could afford them, they weren't producing these and they were long gone. And so Don Post Jr., they went ahead and scanned the 1960s ones that were sculpted by Pat Newman and other talented artists, and Bill Malone retooled some of these, and they brought it back, the calendar reissues, in 1998.
Yeah.
They came with boxes that are pretty cool, which we'll show you in some other videos. I have a handful of calendar masks. We're trying to get all of them on here.
Yeah, that's our goal, right? To get all the 98 reissues and all that, which he's getting close, by the way. But
I have like 5, but I think there's 15 total. But some of them are easy to get, and some of them are just going to be a real pain. So we're gonna work on that.
I love it. This thing's still tagged.
Yeah.
You guys can see the tag when you pop in, and then the actual. I actually really liked this actual sculpt, right? It's it screams 50 sci-fi, you know, with these big giant yellow eyes and the bumps all over, and which the bumps are a little bit furry. What's up with that? What do they do with that?
They got some felt on the surface, which is pretty cool. He's very like velvety, so he's fun.
It is like a velvet. It's like a velvet mole guy, man. I really like this, man. But really cool mask, man. I mean, it's got that brown paint job. If you guys have watched the movie, I'll put some screenshots up. They look like this. They look just very muted and this or that, but then they have these big bug eyes and all that stuff. But thing I like about this mask, man, how thick this thing is, man.
They made them incredibly thick.
Yeah.
I think there's only 2 calendar masks that I have so far that I can fit my head in because they're so incredibly thick. So I have to like force them onto my head. This one I cannot force on my head. This thing looks like something I'm not gonna say going over my head. And
what head? Okay. But yeah, you're right. This is definitely it's not cut in the back or anything like that. So this is. I would tell people this is a display. What are you wearing this thing for anyway, right? This is what's going to look really cool up on your wall, up on your shelf, and all that stuff. And it's a piece of history, right? I mean, once again, we're too old, or actually we're too young to have the 60s and 70s masks. I mean, maybe someone's got them, but once again, they're probably
crumbled up,
crumbled, dry rotted. It's latex, right?
Yeah.
But to have a 98, which now 98, you want to look at it, that's what 25 years removed, right?
Yeah.
So it is becoming vintage again. It is, but these are some stellar copies, man. So I'm really stoked on this, man. That and it's like I said, it's not Frankie, it's not these big Drax or whatever that you expect us to present, but this is part of history, man. It was in the original '66 catalog, or I'm sorry, calendar, and the reissue made it it's one of what 15 you said, right?
Of the mask,
Yeah. So, we're, it's kind of, you gotta have this thing, and you know what? If you're ever just really bored, go watch the movie, man, and just get
a kick out of it.
You'll get a kick. You'll get a little laugh out of it,
wild,
but the imagination of 70 plus years ago, or whatever. So, all right. So if I'm picking this guy up, if I'm hitting on eBay, right, and I want, and I know. Let me hit this up. So all the calendar reissue masks, they all don't go for the same price.
No, they vary. Some are very rare, and some are just, you can get them on eBay at any time.
So what would you, if I was going to go for a mole man, if I'm looking for a mole man, now don't be mistaken, because Trick Street Studios did a mole man as well. So if you want a cheap mole man, and not say cheap, an affordable copy and whatever, you can get them for $60, probably under that if you find them out there.
Not going to be a collector's item like this guy.
Will not
That's
be.
the main difference.
100% not. But this guy, if I'm going on eBay and I'm looking for him, what am I going to pay for something like this?
So without the box, I see him go for around $150 to $200, but with the box, I've seen him go for $350. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty rad, man. And this one was out without a box, right? Yeah. This was you got this from a friend and all that stuff. So
shout out Hugo.
There you go, Hugo. Thank you so much, man. So there you guys go. The 1998 Don Post reissue Mole Man. Once again, seen in the 1966 calendar, Mr. November. Which if I was going to put a day, a month on this guy, I'd put November, right? It seems like you want to start burrowing underground at that time. It's getting cold.
Hibernation.
That's right, man. So that being said, it's time that we go subterranean, and we're going to close the Mask Morgue doors.